everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Andrea. It's nice to have you guys again. I'm just rolling straight through with these advice videos, hence same hair, same makeup, same everything. So this is the things your teacher wishes you knew / things I as a teacher wish my students knew. These are the things that will hopefully help you in your classes. Tip number 1, and this is the most important thing. And this goes whether you are freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, doing a study abroad program in grad school. If you haven't learned this by grad school though, heaven help you getting through your graduate program. Important tip, most important, read the syllabus. Okay? Read it. Every page, every word, everything. Big print, fine print, invisible print. I've never done that. That would be a fun trick to try to put invisible ink. See, I put all my syllabi up online, so that wouldn't work. But you get what I'm saying. Read everything. And read it as soon as it gets posted. Because the syllabus is your contract with that teacher. At least if they're a good teacher. These are the terms of the class. And I, as a teacher, promise not to change them in the middle of the class without talking with it over with my students. And you, as the student, agree to abide by those terms. So if you're reading the syllabus and the schedule just looks really insane, maybe you're taking 5 classes that semester, the syllabus is a good way to figure out if you should stay in that class. Most universities have a very short timeline for which you can drop a class. These are things to be aware of. Also, teachers really hate getting questions about things that are on the syllabus. So when my students email me or approach me in class and say, "When is something due?" It's on the syllabus. "When are your office hours?" It's on the syllabus. "What's your office number?" It's on the syllabus. Are you sensing a pattern here? Because I sure do, every single semester. So a lot of those basic information is on the syllabus. Now, one thing that I don't always spell out in my syllabus is like where on campus my office is located. So if a student emails me and says, "I see your office is," and then they'll say the building code and the number, but I'm not sure where that is. Again, they could look it up on the map, but it's still a specific question and one that I didn't specifically address in the syllabus. So I'm always happy to then email them back and say that letter prefix is the building code. Any map that you look at will have that code listed, but here are some other landmarks around my building that will help you find me. So that's kind of the difference. If a student says, "I see that this paper or this project is due on this date, but I'm still not sure about something else," then that lets me know that you've read the syllabus and you've done as much as you can to find the answer to the question you have, and you still have a question. And okay, now I know where to start. Whereas even with things that aren't on the syllabus or aren't like on an assignment handout, if a student says, "I just don't understand broad concept of the world, can you narrow it down to a few more specific questions so that I can really help you?" That's kind of really important. So, question or tip number 2, and this seems obvious, but again, you never know. Pay attention in class and participate in class. College, here's a tip for you. Cool versus not cool, popular versus not popular, that doesn't exist in college. That may have existed in high school, but that doesn't exist in college. Being in class, that is your time, and you are paying a lot of money for it, depending on where you're going to school. Don't waste it. So don't hang back and not ask questions or not dive in and participate in a discussion because you're afraid you might not sound cool or you're afraid you might look like a fool. I am of the mind that the only stupid question is the one that's never asked. If you have a teacher who does operate under the assumption that there are stupid questions, that's their problem, not yours. So you should never be afraid to ask a question. And if you feel like you've gotten shot down by your professor, you've heard it from a college instructor, that's their problem, not yours. They're the jerk, you're fine, and good for you for asking that question. So it's really important to participate. Now, tip for shy students. If you are someone who is really shy and anxious and maybe is not willing to put yourself out there, there are still ways that you can participate. And let your teacher know that you're engaging. So talking with them before or after class, showing up to their office hours, emailing them a question, being upfront with them, to say, especially if you feel like you do have that more trusting relationship with them, to email them and say, hey, I was too shy to kind of say this in class, but I really liked what you were saying about X, or I have a question about Y. It can really go a long way. And sometimes if you start that conversation and get to know the professor a little bit more, you do then start to feel a bit more open to speak in class. Participating is really important, and a lot of teachers do have fairly strict policies on participation, and they are grading you. So they might not say anything, but you don't want to get to the end of the semester and find that you didn't get as high of a score on participation as you could have because you weren't trying to reach out and engage in some way or another. Tip number 3 that kind of goes along with this, and I briefly mentioned it, go to office hours. Get to know your teacher, especially if they seem like they're pretty cool, if they're kind of in your major and they do research that interests you, if you feel like you've got kind of a good connection with them and you can trust them. It's really important to get to know those teachers. They can be huge resources to you down the road in terms of writing letters of recommendation for you. They can also really help you in terms of getting through that class. So going to office hours and asking questions about assignments, about things from the discussion that day. Some students kind of feel like professors don't want them to come to office hours. And yes, there are professors out there that will do everything they can to avoid meeting with their students. Again, those are professors that I don't like and they really should not be teaching. But for a lot of teachers, we enjoy teaching. We enjoy getting to know you. So come talk to us. The thing that a lot of students don't realize is as teachers, we have to hold office hours. My department mandates that for every class I teach, I have to hold 2 hours of office hours a week. So I'm teaching 2 classes this semester, so I have 4 hours a week that are set aside, and I'm teaching online, so they're all online office hours when students can email me or do like a Google chat or something. But it's still time set aside specifically for my students. And when I was holding in-person office hours, I would sit in my office, usually doing class prep or my own homework, but it was because students didn't show up. But that time is there for you, and if I didn't have to hold those office hours, I would be home doing something else. So take advantage of the fact that your teachers have to be in their office during that time. If you go to the office hours of a professor and they kind of shut you down, okay, that's not the best thing, and you might want to find alternate sources of help throughout the semester. But you'd be surprised. Most of your teachers are actually really happy to see you, to see anyone in their office. So take advantage of that. Tip number 4, also related. Tip number 4 and 5 are kind of similar. Share your drafts and get feedback. So this is especially important in writing classes, but it can also help you in other classes in terms of sharing your work. If you take a math class, go to the office hours and run through a few problems and ask, am I getting this? Am I understanding this? A science class, if you've got a lab report, take a draft of that in. Does this meet the guidelines? Where can I improve this? If you can't see your professor, if there's a TA for the class, working with the TA, if there's a writing center on campus, going to see a tutor at the writing center, there's usually a bunch of different ways that you can get your work seen. It's important that at the university level that you understand that your first draft is never your final draft, and that you're going to go through multiple versions of almost all of your projects. And so getting feedback and help on those is really important. Number 5, kind of related to all of this, know what and who your TA is. If you have a TA instead of a faculty professor, a lot of students don't understand what a teaching assistant is, or TA. So for those of you who don't, a TA is generally a grad student, like me, who in exchange for support during their graduate degree, they are teaching a certain number of classes every year. My students are always surprised to find out that I'm a student too. And that is very common at the university level. There are a lot of TAs. We tend to teach a lot of the intro-level classes, so even in other disciplines, you might have a lecture with a tenured faculty member for a science class, and you'll be in there with 400 other students, and then there might be like 4 or 5 TAs that are responsible for a certain number of those students. So know who your TA is. Maybe you don't have access to go see the professor, but you go talk to the TA. So know who that is. Know who your kind of point person for the class is. I always really liked my TAs when I was an undergrad, and as a TA I tend to have a really interesting connection to my students because I understand what they're going through. Getting to know your TA and understanding the role of a TA can be really helpful. If a medical emergency comes up, if a family emergency comes up, let your teacher know. Don't just drop off the face of the planet for, 2 weeks and then pop back up. If the worst happens, if you have a family member pass away, if someone gets sick, if you get sick, have a way of contacting your teacher to let them know what's going on. I have had students who have had some crisis pop up, and it is always better and easier to help them when they let me know at the start than when they show back up after a 2-week absence or something and then tell me what's going on. Most teachers I know are pretty flexible. If there's an assignment that's due or something, we can either accept it early if it's ready to go, or we can give you a week extension. It's going to depend on the teacher and it's going to depend on the circumstance, but never be afraid to ask. Never be afraid to let your teacher know what's going on. Some teachers aren't going to be accepting, but you'd be surprised how many are. It's just important to kind of keep us in the loop of what's going on. Now, that being said, if you're asking for an extension because you partied a little bit too much, that never flies. That never goes over well. But in the case of a legitimate emergency or situation, or if you're really struggling with just the assignment itself, if you're struggling academically, when I've had students who come into office hours, they talk to me, I know what they're struggling with. If I think that giving them an extra week is going to help them really push the project that much further that it can make the difference of a letter grade, I give them that extension. So for the students that kind of demonstrate that they have earned that opportunity, I usually give it. So again, it's going to depend on the teacher, but it never hurts to ask. Tip number 6, understand that your teachers are humans too. We're not robots. They don't just wheel us into a cabinet at the end of the day and plug us in until the next day when they roll us back out and turn us on to teach you guys. We're human. Whether we're a graduate teaching assistant or a full faculty member, we have other classes we teach, we have other work that we do, we have projects that we're working on, we have friends, we have family, we have outside of work commitments, we have personal drama that happens, we get sick. Everything that you go through, we go through as well in one way or another. So we're human, and we're not perfect, and we do make mistakes. And I think the good teachers acknowledge that and don't hold those mistakes against their students. But even if you do get one of those bad teachers that does, at least like, they're not a horrible angry monster. They're just a human being who doesn't handle life very well. Oh, I will include in the description bar a blog post that I share with my students called The Shadow Syllabus. And it's a great blog post written by another instructor that is a long list of all the things that she wishes she could put on the syllabus but can't. usually because of departmental policies of what can and can't go on a syllabus. So I share it with all of my students every semester, and I get a lot of really great feedback on it. So I'll include that link below. Definitely read that and check that out. Other grad students, if you're watching this, check that out as well if you haven't heard of it, because it's really great and it might help you. I think we'll end it there. If you have questions as an undergrad, and you've stumbled on this video, please put them in the comments below. I'd be happy to do a undergrad survival or kind of Q&A video as a follow-up if there's a bunch of questions, or I'll just answer them in the comment section. But definitely, if there's something that you've always wondered about your teachers, you know, I can't speak for every teacher, but if there's a general question, I'm happy to take a crack at it or at least give you my opinion, so put it in the comment section below. Stay tuned for more back to school survival, and you can also check out the previous video. I will put a card or a link below all of the videos so far in this series, and I will see you all in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.